Would you like to get rich quick with property investing? If that's the case, well, you're not going to find your answer here. In today's episode, Matthew Aitchison is going to talk about how you too can have the roadmap to $250,000 in passive income with commercial property investments. And what's so special about Matthew is that he is a real estate investor, entrepreneur, business coach, speaker, podcaster, content creator, and founder and CEO of Imagos Hospitality Group. And he's an esteemed hotelier, investment syndicator, and highly sought after speaker within the real estate industry. So the first question I have is, what's the secret to your success? And does it have anything to do with learning how to invest in property?
Welcome to Awakened Titans podcast with Lily Patrascu. Mind-blowing conversations with influential business titans sharing how you can manifest abundance, love, joy, success through quantum awakening, quantum manifestation, quantum healing, quantum miracles, exponential business growth, and innovative products and services.
Well, thank you for having me on. I would say, I grew up knowing that I was never the fastest, smartest, or strongest person. So I was going to have to get really good at building the right skills, surrounding myself with the right people, and really just to get my mind right. And so I would say, one of the number one things that has contributed to my success is I have a mantra that I say and live by every single day. And that is, I am dumb enough to believe in myself and smart enough to take action on my goals every day. Most people, I think oftentimes talk themselves out of just getting into motion. They need to have all of the, kind of stepping stones and the path figured out. And I've always just been a big believer in massive action. Through that action, you find more clarity in kind of figuring out how to navigate your path, and really just being willing to adjust and adapt really quickly on the fly with what's working, what's not working. So obviously, real estate is a get rich slow industry, and you really have to have stamina. You have to have grit. You have to have that patience to really be able to allow the ingredients of this recipe of success in commercial real estate to really fuse together. That's why we talk a lot about the Crockpot mindset versus the microwave mentality. I think so many people come into commercial real estate or just real estate in general, and they've seen people flashing checks and having the ability to generate quick results, and it really just takes time. Just like the Crockpot takes a while for the right ingredients to fuse together, it really puts out a great dish when you give it that time. Versus the microwave, I think we all know what kind of food comes out of the microwave, right? So just having that patience and that persistence, that stamina, that discipline, and just the right mindset is going to be the foundation that ultimately has allowed me to, start from very small, tiny little single family houses to now owning hotels and, big shopping centers. It's been a journey, but it all started with that mindset and just being willing to, follow the plan, trust in the process, and just not give up.
Thank you. So tell us, what's the path for property entrepreneurs to create an extra $250,000 in passive property income?
It really is a math equation. I've always believed everything is a math equation in a lot of ways of business, right? And so for me, when I was in my mid-20s, I was flipping a lot of houses. I was owning a bunch of single family properties. And, I was realizing that based on the amount of income each one of those properties was kicking off on an annual basis, my goal had a very large gap between where I was at and what I was actually generating at that time. And so it really helped me go back to the drawing board and say, okay, you know what, over the next 10 years, if I want to unlock $500,000 a year in passive income, what do I need to do? What kind of investments do I need to buy? Where are these investments? What kind of skills do I need to build in order to manage and operate and understand those investments? And so as I started getting more into commercial real estate, I started to learn that, at the end of the day, if I were to just simplify this process and just buy one property a year, one commercial property a year, that when all is said and done, that property nets $50,000 to me as the owner of it. And I do that for the next 5 years straight, or I do that for the next 10 years straight, I can execute on buying one deal a year. And that would allow me year over year in 5 years to get to that $250,000 in passive income, in 10 years, that $500,000 in passive income. And that's just the cash flow, right? That is being kicked off from these assets. That's not including the depreciation and some of the tax advantages you get to take. That's not including, the equity growth that you're going to see and experience in your assets. So it became a very simple math equation for me that I kind of reverse engineered and said, all right, I can buy one commercial property a year that nets me $50,000. And then it really became, how do I, find these properties? What kinds of properties generate, these types of returns and income? And it allowed me to really build a plan and a path and a strategy that I don't know about for you, but for me, and I'm sure many of your listeners, most people, it's not for individuals like us an issue of taking action. It's about, are we taking the right action? Are we being as efficient and effective as we possibly can in executing our game plan? And a lot of people like to mistake movement for achievement. And then they look up and they're like, man, I didn't really get very far with my plan. So for me, it was getting crystal clear in what am I trying to accomplish? When do I want to be there? Which for me, it was, I want $500,000 a year in passive income over the next 10 years. So if I were to break that down, I need to buy one property a year that nets me $50K a year. Where these properties are at, what kind of relationships, what kind of skills do I need to build? And then it was just getting into the trenches and executing. And that's what I've been doing for the last decade on that particular plan.
Thank you. So tell us about how does it work exactly?
So when you get clear on what it is that you're investing in, right? Because there's a lot of different commercial real estate assets within the category of commercial real estate. If you want to buy storage facilities, mine was hotels and shopping centers. Some people like apartment buildings, some people like mobile home parks, right? Understanding based on your financial goals and what you're trying to achieve, what kind of properties are those first and foremost, and then understanding what's the business model behind those properties, right? So who do you need to surround yourself with? What kind of relationships do you need to build in order to, one, be able to buy those properties, two, to be able to operate those properties that will ultimately get you the returns that you're looking for. So really, it was just kind of mapping out all of the different pieces of that roadmap and figuring out what, puzzle pieces I was missing. And then it was ultimately starting to get into, the trenches and build those relationships, identify the brokers who can start sending you deals and opportunities, or if you're going to do, off-market lead generation ideas and trying to find deals that aren't on the main listing platforms, right? It was getting clear in the buy box criteria first of like, what is the asset and what does it look like and what is the criteria of that? And then from there, it was going and hunting them down, right? So thinking of all the different strategies and ways that you can find investment opportunities that meet your investment criteria. And then from there, right, starting to put together what we call the capital stack, understanding how you're going to fund the deal, what kind of debt you may need to get in place on the deal. And then once you close on it, right, is who is going to be the individual or the group that is operating the asset that, when done properly, right, will spit out that $50,000 at the end of the year, so that way you can hit your investment goals and returns. And so that's ultimately, a very high level approach to how you can get clear in what your model is and what you want to go after and when you want to achieve it by. What is the asset vehicle or type that aligns with that? And then what is the strategy for how you find those opportunities, how you close on those opportunities, and how you optimize or operate those opportunities to get the income that you're looking for and the investment returns that you're looking for. And, connecting all of those dots and kind of pouring a foundation, building the right team, and just consistently, checking in and executing on that plan.
Thank you. Let's take a very practical example of, let's say, entrepreneurs that want to buy hotels. And let's say their budget is only $100K, but maybe they can get a mortgage for, $500K. And let's say they have $100K in cash, and then the rest they can get $500K mortgage. And then what would you suggest that they do? Because let's say, I know you operate in the US, and then the people that are listening are UK and US based. So I'm wondering, if you want, you can talk about the US market only, because that's the one that you're most comfortable with. So how would it work for someone that doesn't have actually the entire funds needed to buy a hotel? Because let's say a hotel could be in the millions. Let's say it could be, 3 million, 5 million, or I don't know, depends, like, I guess, on the size of the property and so on. What kind of strategy would you recommend to them that they do in order to make this happen with such a limited budget?
Yeah, I mean, that's ultimately how I got into the space. Most people don't come flush with cash, ready to take down, multi-million-dollar property. And so you got to get creative. You have to have a creative mindset, because most people think that, they need to do it the traditional way, which is, have a certain amount of money available for a down payment and the rest is going to get funded by a bank. And the beautiful thing about commercial real estate is there are so many different ways that you can structure and fund and close on a deal. So one of the best ways that, this has always rang true to me, and something that one of my early mentors taught me, which is, especially for a lot of people who may have the money block, objection in their mindset of, I don't have enough money. How am I going to buy, my first big commercial property? And that could be, if I, like you said, a $500,000 asset, that could be a $1 million asset, that could be a $10 million asset. Depending on how much capital you have liquid and available to play with. One of my early mentors said, if you find an amazing deal, the money will always find its way to the deal. And when you think about that being true, right? I mean, there are so many different investment vehicles out there, depending on how good and how safe or risk mitigated that investment opportunity is. Money is going to find a way to that opportunity, knowing that it can get a good return and yield on its capital, right? And that it's mitigated in some way. Well, one of the best ways to mitigate risk is to be in a tangible, hard asset that has real intrinsic value. And if you get it at a good enough price, right, that's going to be a way where people can park their capital in that deal. So you can pool funds from other investors to come in on the deal with you. And that's one way that many new commercial real estate investors that are kind of breaking into the space, you find a great deal. There's a lot of people who have a lot of money looking for great returns, but they just don't have a lot of time. They're not going to go and find these properties. They don't want to manage and operate them. And that's where you come in. You do the sweat equity, you find the deal, you get the business plan put together, and you execute on that. You can get into deals with little or no money by being the one who brings the value to the table and who has the skills and the expertise to operate it. But if you don't, right, want to do that, one way that I always say is a great way to get into commercial real estate is by doing something like that, finding and bringing an opportunity to somebody. You can either take a fee from that, or you can roll your fee into the deal. And that's one way that you can, by bringing this opportunity to somebody else that you know is an investor that can afford to take it down, that does have the financial backing for it, that does have the expertise, you now have become an item of value to them. You brought them an opportunity that's going to make them money. And the way that you can structure that deal is by taking a small sliver of the equity in exchange for the value and the opportunity that you put in front of those individuals. So that's one way, right? I always say it's better to own a slice of a watermelon than 100% of nothing, or 100% of a little tiny raisin, right? So if you have the ability to be creative and think about how you can find opportunities and open the door to that opportunity to other investors, they may want to pool funds and partner with you on it, right? Or you may want to sell it to them or pass that opportunity off to them, but participate in the capital stack in a small capacity that gets you some equity in the deal. And now all of a sudden you own a piece of property. You didn't take all of the risk. You're going to get to share in some of the upside. You're going to get to learn from another experienced individual who you're going to be in proximity to, that you're going to get to see how they execute on a winning strategy with real estate. So there's a lot of different ways you can structure it. But the number one thing I would just say is, know that if you find a great deal, there is a way to get the deal done, no matter how much money you have available or not. And that's the mindset you should approach when you're going into your first deal.
Thank you. In terms of specifically the thing that you can, you mentioned, which is that how can you passively create income of an extra income of $250,000 in 5 years. Yep. So I'm wondering about how much money would an investor need to put down, let's say in a hotel project? Or would you recommend that instead of putting it in a hotel project, that they put it in a residential project that they can afford and buy something for 500K and they could still make that work? What are you suggesting exactly in terms of how much money they need and what would they put it in, for example?
Yeah, well, when it comes to real estate in general, I mean, no deal is the same. Every, deal is different. Every financial model behind that deal is different depending on how much you put down, what debt terms you get. So what is left over at the end really depends on how you structure the debt and equity on the deal. So it's hard to say. You're probably not going to find many single family properties that are going to net you $50,000 a year. They just don't have that level of scale. Whereas commercial real estate, I own a shopping center right down the road that I bought for $1 million. And when it all is said and done, when I take the top line of what revenue the plaza generates, and I back out all of the operating expenses and I back out all of the debt service, my true net cash flow is around $49,000 a year. So you really need to understand the financial model behind the asset that you're looking to invest in and understand based on the top line, based on all of your operating expenses to make sure that that asset stays operating and that you have your debt service taken out of that. Is it going to spit out enough money at the end of the day that warrants and aligns with your investment goals? So I think it really just depends. When you get into some larger commercial real estate assets, it could be one deal nets you $100,000 or $150,000 a year. So again, it all depends on the price point. It depends on how much equity you're bringing to the table. It depends on what kind of debt you're getting and what those terms look like. That ultimately determines what you can expect as a return on the investment and what it spits out at the end of the day, based on how you structure all of those things. So it's a tough question to answer, being that every deal is different and every financial model is different. And also understanding that every opportunity is going to have either, different upside or different risk tied to it. So those are all things that get weighed into how you look at and analyze deals, and determine, which ones really align with your criteria and what risks you want to take as you get into the space.
Thank you. What would you say is the very minimum an entrepreneur would need in order to get started and to kind of make the money start rolling, start to produce an income? And if yes, with what strategy would you recommend that they use this money?
Yeah, and this is all, as we're talking, right? I'm talking in terms and a perspective of being a GP, a general partner and owner of the asset, whereas an LP is just going to be a passive investor, somebody that maybe contributes funds, but has no control, has no decision making, completely passive, right? And those are going to be more what we call syndication opportunities. You're going to have a general partner who brings the deal to the table, and they're going to go and raise other capital from other individuals to partner with them on the deal, but they're going to be the one in charge. But LPs, based on what the structure is of that offering, will get some kind of passive income in return on their money. So to give you an answer around what is the minimum amount, I would say it all depends on the type of asset and the price point that you're buying. But that being said, to get any kind of meaningful return and momentum in commercial real estate, in a perfect world, $200,000 to $250,000 to put down on $1 million asset, we've modeled out is a great way to get close to, depending on the type of deal you're buying and what kind of opportunity is there, to get close to netting $50,000 a year. Now, the one that I bought, the shopping center I bought, was about for $950,000. And that one, I had to put some improvements and renovations into it. We were able to raise the rents. I was able to lower some of the operating expenses, and we were able to get to that $50,000 a year passive income. And I did that deal with $0 of my own money. I leveraged private money first, and I leveraged a hard money second that allowed me to pay the mortgage on the first. It allowed me to reinvest into renovating the property and some of those holding costs. And once I maximized the value of that asset after I did my renovation plan, we raised the rents, we lowered the operating expenses, and we improved the net operating income. It allowed me to refinance out the first lender, the second lender, and I didn't have any of my own money into that deal. So that's a creative finance, what we call burst strategy deal, that I was able to do that deal, and I still own that commercial real estate property 6 years later, and I put $0 of my own money. So those types of deals are out there. They're not common, but that being said, you can get into commercial real estate with little or no money. But in a perfect world, to have, kind of a rule of thumb, if you're going to go with the traditional path, 200 to 250,000 is a great way to get started. That will help you achieve that goal, depending on, again, how you structure things on your debt and equity, of netting $50,000 a year on your investment. So that's, a good way, but I've seen people do it with 100, with 50, and they partner with other people who come in and, cover the gaps that they have, and they still find a way to structure it and create a win-win. So again, that's the beautiful thing about, real estate in general. As creative as your mind can be, if you can get a meeting of the minds and make it a win-win for everybody, there's a lot of different ways you can structure deals with very little money involved.
Thank you. Tell us about your top 3 most successful projects, aside from what you've just mentioned, that have enabled you to kind of get the kind of return you're expecting.
Yeah, I'm doing one right now that will probably end up being one of my most successful ones. I bought a 75,000 square foot retail shopping center. So just imagine a very large shopping center, and it was inherited by 2 sisters. They had it on the market for about a year and a half, right around $3 million, but it was run down. There was a lot of vacancies. The occupancy was low. The income wasn't really that good on it. And they were marketing it at a price that, really was way too high. I offered 900 on it. We agreed at $1,050,000. And by the time I closed on it, it appraised at $2.8 million. So I was walking into $1.8 million in equity on top of my purchase price. I got the bank to fund 100% of my construction costs. So I put about $800,000 into the plaza. And now we're negotiating with some national tenants that are going to come and fill up the remainder of the vacancies in the plaza. And those few leases will infuse about $5.5 million in value into the plaza. So my basis will be right around 3 in the plaza, and it'll be worth about 8. And that's a beautiful value add deal right there. That is, a big win. I've had some great wins on my, hotels, and, basically remodeling the hotels, rebranding them, relaunching them. These are all boutique hotels. And finding ways, again, the name of the game in commercial real estate is drive revenue, lower expenses, increase your net operating income. And by doing so, by stabilizing the income with commercial real estate, you find a way to infuse value into the asset. And that's what commercial real estate investors do. Me as a value add commercial real estate investor, that's what we do. And then when we create that value, we 1031 exchange it and buy into something else and continue to rinse and repeat that strategy going forward. So those have been some of the great ones on my hotels, where I was able to, essentially do those value add plans, take an old dilapidated, boutique hotel, increase the revenue by, making the team better, by rebranding it, remodeling it, adding in some cool things to make the hotel more of a desirable place to go to. And then once we maximize that value, to sell those hotels and exchange all of that new equity into another big deal that we can rinse and repeat that strategy all over again.
Thank you. Tell us about your top 3 most exciting projects that either your students have done implementing your techniques, or that you have done in collaboration with your investors or your students.
Yeah, we've got lots of different cool deals that people have done. One guy, he inherited a small chunk of money, and we helped him buy one of his first single tenant net lease deals, which is essentially just think of like a standalone Starbucks or a standalone Sherwin-Williams, or anything that is a national brand that's a standalone. And that one deal netted him $60,000 a year, and he was able to retire his wife because she was a school teacher. And that gave him the opportunity by buying that property, which as a triple net deal is like totally passive. You'll never get a phone call. You just get checks. And that was a great win for them and their family. There's one guy that has been coaching with me for a handful of years that he found a building in an industrial park. And long story short, he was able to get a government lease that came in and leased up a vacant building that he now bought for $1 million. And with the lease getting implemented into that building itself, put the value of the building around $6 million. And so he's into it for about $2 million. And now he's got about $4 million in equity with this new lease that he was able to secure at the property just 9 months later. So that's the power of some commercial real estate, is you have the ability through some of these opportunities that you can really infuse a ton of value into your assets without doing a lot of really hard work. And it's got far greater upside on your time, your energy, your skills, your relationships in commercial real estate than you find in, let's say, single family. You can't take a property in single family, and 12 months later have it be 5 or 10x the value, right? Because you can only do so much in single family, whereas commercial, there's a lot of different ways of engineering those types of deals. So one of our students has purchased went from 0 to 3 industrial flex warehouse properties that are doing really well in his town. And he built a relationship with, another developer in town. So lots of cool stories and wins like that, where there's so many different ways to make money in commercial real estate. When you get clear on what it is that you want, you really start, leaning into that and taking action on it. It's if you would have told me I'd be buying hotels and 75,000 square foot shopping centers 10 years ago when really 14 years ago when I got into real estate and I was buying little tiny dinky houses and not so good neighborhoods, I would have told you you're crazy. But that's the beauty, right? Is once you get into the game and you start to learn and you start to evolve and you start to build confidence, you start to build relationships, the sky's the limit.
Thank you. What are the top 5 ways to find the right deals in terms of commercial properties?
Yeah, I mean, the way I look at it is I look like I'm a farmer. And, if you're getting into real estate, looking at it's really a relationship driven business, right? And so many of the great deals that I found have been because people knew what I was looking for. I let them know. You can't keep your goals a secret, right? So I consistently share those on my podcast. I share them on social media. I take people through, the journey and the day in the life. So that way they know what I'm doing. I give them a little bit of a window. But also, finding different opportunities through relationships, those take time, right? So thinking about your relationships, your database, like a raw piece of dirt, a raw, land farm. And like every good farmer, they know that they've got to get out there every single day. They got to plant seeds. They got to nurture, those crops, the relationships. And eventually in years' time, there will be fruit to harvest and those opportunities will come. But you got to be diligent and disciplined with how you build relationships. And so that's one of the things that I heavily focus on is building relationships. Not keeping my goals a secret, letting people know what I'm doing. And whether that's going to business masterminds and conferences, that's getting on podcasts and letting people know what I'm looking for. And who knows, who might reach out to me because I was on your amazing show and they have an opportunity, right? Going to in-person events. There's obviously paid marketing strategies, whether that's pay-per-click, and that's Google. That is, direct mail, text messaging, voicemail drops. There's a lot of, more advanced paid marketing strategies that you can do. Getting PR, getting connected with city councils and other people that are involved in the community has been a great way to get different opportunities brought to me. But yeah, I mean, honestly, one of my best weapons over the years has been my podcast and my social media, because people get to know you, right? And that's one thing that I always say is, for anybody that's listening, one great thing that anybody can do is become more likable. And how do you become more likable? Well, I don't know about you, but these are some of the variables in the equation that I think make likable people, which is one, you're humble. Just be humble, right? Like nobody wants that person who's always bragging and it's got an ego bigger than everybody else, right? So like be humble, but also be confident, right? It doesn't mean you have to be cocky, but just be confident in yourself, who you are, what you bring to the table, what you're capable of doing, even if something is new, right? Hey, I'll figure this out. So confidence is another key that people gravitate towards. The third thing is hard work. Anybody that's willing to bust their ass and just work really, really hard every single day, no matter what the results are, the effort is a 10 out of 10. If you're humble, if you're confident, if you're always working hard in the last one, if you're always looking for ways to bring value to other people, whether it's going to come back to you or not, if you're just genuinely looking to bring value to other people, I don't know about you, but when I'm around people that are humble, hardworking, confident, and consistently want to bring value to me, I'm like, I like that person. Like, I want to help them win. I want to see like what I can do to elevate them, right? And so you do that for enough people, you become more likable in enough people's eyes. I can't tell you how many opportunities or deals I had no business being involved in at the level that I was at yet. But because people said, I just like you, I just want to help you, I just want to see you win. Those are the things that could make the difference between getting you your first deal or having somebody say, hey, you know what? I'll stroke a check for $250,000 and invest in your deal with you, right? So those are some of the things that I think about when it comes to getting started, and how you can really, break into something that may not feel attainable to you, but being more likable and, getting after relationships and understanding there's a lot of different ways that you can approach finding deals. That's how I got started in commercial real estate.
Thank you. Tell us where entrepreneurs can find you.
They can listen to the podcast Millionaire Mindcast, which has been 10 plus years running on all podcasting platforms. So that's one way, or just on social media. My handle is @official Matty A, whether that's X or Instagram or YouTube. You can always reach out to me there, and always love connecting with anybody that heard me on a show.
Follow us for more interviews with world's most influential business titans, providing you with the insights to awaken to your full potential, so you can get paid to be yourself, find true happiness, and manifest anything you desire.